I never believed in ghosts. Superstitions, urban legends, none of it made sense to me. But after what happened, I can never look at a mirror the same way again. It started when I moved into my new apartment. It was an old building, but the rent was cheap, and the view was decent. The previous tenant had left behind a few pieces of furniture, including an antique mirror in the bedroom. It had a heavy wooden frame, carved with strange symbols. The glass had tiny scratches, like someone had clawed at it. At first, I didn't pay much attention to it. The first night, I caught something strange. As I was brushing my teeth, I glanced at the mirror. I could have sworn my reflection was a second slower than me. It was subtle, almost like a delay, but I dismissed it as my imagination. By the third night, I couldn't ignore it anymore. My reflection didn't just lag, it smiled when I wasn't. I froze, staring at the thing in the mirror, my heart pounding. I moved my hand, and it followed. I turned my head, and it mirrored me. But then, as I backed away, it leaned closer. I turned off the light and ran to my bed, covering myself with the blanket like a child. I told myself I was just tired. But that night, I heard it. A whisper, "Let me out." I jolted up, my breath shaky. The room was dark, but I knew the sound had come from the mirror. My pulse thundered in my ears. The next day, I covered the mirror with a sheet. I wanted to throw it away, but I was too scared to touch it. That night, I heard the whispers again, "You can't hide me." I ignored it. I forced myself to sleep. But then, around 3 a.m., I heard something worse, a laugh. A dry, raspy, inhuman chuckle. My stomach twisted. I felt something in the room with me. The air grew colder, and I could see my breath in the dark. Then, the sheet began to move. I sat up in bed, paralyzed. The sheet covering the mirror rippled, like something inside it was breathing. Then, the whispering turned into something else, a low, distorted voice, "Come closer." I stayed frozen, gripping the blanket. I could feel something staring at me, though I couldn't see it. Then, a shadow crawled out from beneath the sheet. I barely had time to react before it lunged at me. I scrambled off the bed, knocking over my nightstand. My lamp shattered. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, my hands shaking. The sheet was still in place. But something moved underneath it. I had enough. I grabbed the mirror and hurled it to the floor. The glass shattered with a deafening crash. Silence. Then, from the shards, my reflection stared back at me. Grinning, and in a voice that wasn't mine, it whispered, "I'm free." The lights flickered. The room filled with whispers. And then, the mirror shards started crawling toward each other. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I ran. I never went back. I don't know who, or what, lived in that mirror. But sometimes, when I pass by reflective surfaces, I swear I see something staring back, something that shouldn't be there. The fresh air, the silence, the way the trees stretched endlessly into the sky. That was before I met it. It was supposed to be a normal trip. A weekend alone in the woods to clear my mind. I packed light, tent, food, flashlight, the usual gear. The first day was peaceful. The second day, I started feeling like I was being watched. At first, I chalked it up to paranoia. But as I walked, I noticed something strange. The woods weren't silent anymore. The usual sounds of birds and rustling leaves were replaced by something else. A whispering sound. It wasn't wind. It was voices. Faint, unintelligible, surrounding me. By the time night fell, I was on edge. I set up my tent and tried to ignore the eerie feeling crawling up my spine. But as I lay there, the whispers grew louder. And then, a snap of a twig outside my tent. I held my breath, heart hammering. My flashlight was in my hand, but I was too terrified to move. Then, I heard breathing. Right outside. Slow. Deep. Not human. I forced myself to unzip the tent just an inch and shone my flashlight outside. My stomach dropped. There, just beyond the trees, stood a figure. Not quite human. Too tall. Its limbs were stretched too long, its eyes reflecting the light like an animal's. But worst of all, it had no face. I slammed the tent shut and grabbed my knife, my hands shaking. The breathing grew closer. My entire body screamed run, but I was frozen in fear. And then, the tent collapsed. A sharp, guttural screech filled the night as something crawled over the fabric. I slashed with my knife, feeling it connect with something solid. The creature howled. I scrambled out, running blindly into the woods. My legs burned, my lungs gasped for air. Behind me, I heard the thing moving too fast, its footsteps unnaturally heavy, branches clawed at me as I stumbled downhill. My ankle twisted, pain shooting up my leg. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Then, the whispers stopped. I collapsed near a fallen log, struggling to breathe. For a moment, there was silence, and then, a hand closed around my ankle. I screamed, kicking wildly. My flashlight flickered. The thing crawled out from the shadows, dragging itself toward me. Its body twisted unnaturally, bones cracking with each movement. Then, it spoke, not in words, but in a voice I recognized. My own voice. "Why are you running?" It asked, its mouth stretching too wide. I don't remember how I got away. Just flashes, stumbling, my car, slamming the door shut, tires screeching as I sped off. I never went back to those woods. But sometimes, late at night, I hear that same breathing outside my window, and I know, it followed me home. But after my dad passed, someone had to take care of the house. It had been in our family for generations, a towering Victorian structure with creaky floors and too many empty rooms. I told myself I'd stay just long enough to fix it up, sell it, and move on. The first night was normal, just the usual noises of an old house settling. But by the second night, I started hearing something else. Thump, it came from above me. The attic. I tried to ignore it, but every night, the sound returned. Sometimes a dull creak, sometimes a light scraping, as if something was dragging across the floor. The house was old. Maybe it was mice. Maybe it was the wind. But deep down, I knew, it sounded like footsteps. On the fourth night, I couldn't take it anymore. Armed with a flashlight and a kitchen knife, I climbed the narrow attic ladder. My hands were clammy, my breath shaky. The attic was cold. Dust swirled in the beam of my flashlight. Boxes stacked against the walls, old furniture covered in white sheets. Nothing unusual. But then, I noticed something odd. In the farthest corner of the attic, where no one ever went, there were footprints in the dust. They led to a small wooden door, barely 3 feet high. I had never seen it before. My pulse pounded in my ears. I should have left it alone. But some sick, morbid curiosity made me open it. The door creaked. Inside was a tiny crawlspace, pitch black, the air thick with the scent of mold and something rotten. I shone my flashlight inside, expecting dust and cobwebs. Instead, I saw something worse, a bed. An old, filthy mattress, flattened with years of use. Next to it, a rusted tin plate and a pile of bones. Small animal bones. At least, I hoped they were, and on the walls, scratched deep into the wood, tally marks. Hundreds of them. My stomach twisted. I felt the air shift, as if the space itself was breathing. Then I heard it, a whisper, "You found me." I spun around, my flashlight flickering. A figure stood in the attic doorway. Tall. Motionless. Watching, I barely saw its face, just a glimpse. Sunken eyes, stretched skin, lips curled into a grin too wide for a human. Then, it lunged. I don't remember running down the attic ladder. Just the sensation of my feet hitting the floor too hard. My body crashing into furniture, my breath choking in my throat. I didn't stop. I threw myself out the front door and into my car, peeling out of the driveway. I never went back. The house is still there, waiting, but sometimes, late at night, I wake up to a sound I can't explain, a faint thump, like footsteps, like someone walking above me, and I wonder, did I ever really escape?
Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. And hey, share it with your friends, it really helps the channel grow. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.